Okay. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Resolute webinar, bringing military personnel, veterans, our first responders, and families together. We are definitely stronger together, and I've got the privilege of introducing Andy Cullen and Paul Broadbridge, who do amazing work in this space. And I really felt that I wanted to create a platform to celebrate good work that's happening on the ground. And as you know, Resolute Ready has a digital platform called the Resolute Ready Virtual Hub that actually connects you to service providers. And these two amazing human beings are part of the Resolute Ready family. So I think we'll just go straight over to Andy. Could you just tell us a bit about yourself and how PTSD Resurrected came about?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Lydia. It's great to see you again. Always love seeing your smiling face. I'm very much looking forward to coming down to Adelaide and seeing you in person soon. So my name's Andy Cullen. I'm a veteran, Army, 17 years service. My dad served 50 years, so he thinks I'm a Jube, which is fair enough. Um, yeah, served in the infantry and then the engineers, and most of my career in bomb disposal. Saw a few tours to Afghanistan and some other places. Struggled with stuff after getting out, and had a bit of a personal collapse, family issues, and relationship issues, and drug and alcohol issues, and all the other things that tend to go along for a lot of people with transitioning out of service after seeing war. But through the support of family, community, finding faith, and an amazingly supportive wife, I overcame my challenges. My wife and I actually wrote a book called Resurrected, A Story of Hope, which talked about the impact of PTSD on our family, not just as a soldier, but how it impacted my wife and the kids as well. And after releasing that book, we just had a heart to help others. So kind of got sick of watching people I knew die from suicide and got sick of going to funerals. And I thought this is something needs to be done. And if no one else is going to do it, well, I'm going to do something about it. So we started a charity, PTSD Resurrected. Been going 10 years now. I can't believe it. I'm getting old. The body's feeling it, but the mind still thinks I'm 25. So we run free trauma and moral injury recovery programs for veterans, first responders, their families, and their community. And we also open up a small number of positions to the wider community, people impacted by domestic and family violence, childhood sexual abuse, or all other forms of trauma. The reality is you can't live a life and not be impacted by trauma at some point. So we're here to serve the community. We do that with the amazing support of some great sponsors, both corporates and others. Our main sponsor and supporter for our veteran community is actually RSL Queensland. So we're a partner program with them, and they fund us to go to many places around the country, including South Australia, Tasmania, New South Wales, Queensland, Northern Territory, and I don't know, maybe online. So
Andy,
yeah,
you've been overseas.
yeah, we do. We've run our programs internationally as well. We try to do one program a year internationally. We've run them a bit like a start of a bad joke, but we get two couple of Aussies delivering a US course in places like Northern Ireland, in Belfast, and in London, and in Wales. We've been to South Africa. So incredible programs. And I think the thing that probably your listeners need to know is we're not a clinical provider. We're veterans and first responders helping veterans and first responders. It's called peer supported learning. It's considered an adjunct therapy. So our programs are clinically proven, successful, and have an incredible impact on individuals and families, and have saved. We've been fortunate enough to be witness so many people have their lives saved, families restored, marriages restored, relationships restored, and people finding hope again. So it's a great privilege to be a part of it. I'm the CEO. My wife is my boss. She's the president, and keeps me in line. But it's great to be able to work with her on a daily basis and help our community.
Fantastic, Andy. I uh, personally have known Andy since 2021, and I attended the course. I think I actually did it 3 times. And it's because every time you do something or repeat a course, or the learning is ongoing, and you just keep learning more about yourself. And I think it's just really important to take the risk and to say, yep, I need help. I'm jumping in and I'm with people that really care. Over to you, Paul. Tell our listeners all about APOD and all the wonderful work that you do with your organisation.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. And yeah, no, it's a fantastic opportunity just to, I think, be involved in the conversation in pretty much such an important topic. And I think one that is almost for me, the more we talk about, um, the more open the dialogue actually happens, which I think is actually part of what supports people. For me, in terms of my personal journey and how I got into this space, it's probably it's a personal one. Um, Many know that APOD was founded by my late fiance, Beck, who was a defence spouse. So she was married to an army officer, and he was in CAV, only exited out a couple of years ago. And so Beck understood firsthand that when somebody serves, it doesn't just affect the person wearing the uniform. There's often a partner, a family alongside them dealing with deployments, moves, uncertainty, impacts on jobs on both sides. And that experience from the spouse lens is essentially what drove Beck to start APOD. She wanted to find a practical way to support, recognise the defence and veteran community and their families. But then she was diagnosed with cancer in 2019, which then turned into treatment-related leukemia, and so she passed away in 2021. So for me, going through the illness with her and then ultimately losing her, it's shaped me and it's given me a personal understanding of probably the loss and trauma lens, and what it means to be the person standing alongside someone going through something that's life-changing. So yeah, for me, very personal, continuing what she started has become an important part of my journey. And today, very much with that family, spouse, partner lens. APOD's connected with over 200,000 sort of current and former ADF personnel and their families. But behind all of it, and it's what we all talk about internally as a team, there's very personal reasons about why we do what we do. And majority of the team has served or is the spouse of someone who has served. And, we get, our phone calls daily are not always someone saying, hey, where do I get a discount? Quite often it's the only point of contact that they have. And it's almost like a welfare call that's sort of coming in on the phone. So we love what we do and love this sort of type of conversation to be able to, I think, share and broaden awareness of how do we talk about these types of things, because we don't always do it very well. And therefore, how does that help all of us? Thanks, Lydia. Sorry.
No, thanks, Paul. And I'm so sorry for the loss. Um, I love your fur baby at the back there. He's coming in and out. I just love it.
There's
They're just
kids outside the room that she wants to go play with, so she comes.
That's the unconditional love, I tell you. No, absolutely. It's the personal, it's the narrative, it's what we experience and what we do with that experience. And for me, on a personal note, once my daughter said to me, now I know, Mum, how you can turn something bad into something good.
Mm.
So you're not defined by your past, and there is a future. You've just got to be connected to the right people and find the right support for you. Now, Andrew, PTSD is often misunderstood. How would you explain PTSD to someone who's never actually experienced trauma?
Yeah, it's a good question, Lydia. I think a lot of the sort of misconception in communities built around Hollywood movies and stuff like that. This image of an angry veteran who's violent and aggressive and dangerous. That is really not the case in most of my experience and the people that we serve. and even in my own circumstances, sure, those things can be part of the picture, but they're certainly not the main picture. I think the way I describe post-traumatic stress to people in the community is it's a human response to a really horrific circumstance in your life, whether it was an individual moment, like Paul's just spoken about the loss of someone dear to us, or maybe it's progressive and occurred over time, sort of like the glass is filling up with all these little traumas to the point where I just can't handle it anymore, and things start to break, or things start to people start to suffer, and people suffer in different ways. Most people, I think, are pretty aware of a lot of the symptoms that are associated with PTSD, things like nightmares or terrors or hallucinations, even skin rashes and physical responses to stress, because ultimately it is a stress response, but it impacts people I believe, in three main ways. It impacts the mind. So we start to believe lies about ourselves and others, that we're not worthy, that we're no longer needed, or that we're just a burden to those around us. It impacts our body physically. As we spoke about before, people can develop all sorts of autoimmune issues as a result of trauma. The body has some really interesting responses, and that's being sort of studied a bit more these days. But it also impacts us spiritually. And in my case, that was one of the biggest issues with my post-traumatic stress. It was diagnosed as PTSD from military service and operational service. But what I found out later was actually the real issues that I was dealing with weren't really PTSD related. They were more aligned with moral injury. And I think that's a term that many people are still unaware of. It's really good to see that it's starting to become a bit more mainstream. People are starting to use that term, but essentially moral injury, as opposed to PTSD, which puts the body into a fight or flight response as a fear-based response. Moral injury is more a deeply held moral belief system issue, i.e., we've witnessed, participated in, or observed something that goes against our deeply held moral belief systems. And what happens is our souls get wounded. And if we don't address that wound, then real big issues start to occur. The same with unaddressed PTSD. If left unaddressed, people go to painkillers like drugs, alcohol, avoidance. How many people, isolate just to avoid people because of the stress that they're going through in their lives. So if we don't address these issues at the root cause, then real big problems happen. And ultimately, that's what we do on our programs, is we teach people about what PTSD is and isn't, what moral injury is and isn't, what are the practical ways that we can start to address some of the root causes of these things that we're experiencing in our lives. And the thing that really encourages me, Lydia, is I see people come on these programs that we run. Some people are doing quite well. They've had some issues in the past, and they just kind of want to get on top of one or two issues. Other people are at their bottom. I mean, rock bottom. We've had people that are suicidal, had attempts on their lives the night prior to attending these programs. And my message to everyone is, it doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum. Rock bottom, doing pretty good. If you come onto one of these programs, you're going to learn something. And the thing that I love about it is anyone that turns up to these sort of programs actually overcomes, because it's the people that turn up for themselves that go on to do great things. And like you spoke about before, Lydia, there's a real truth in being forged by the fire. I believe, and I know my wife and kids believe, I'm a better person today because of the trauma that we've walked through. Now, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy, but I know I'm a better person because I'm more attentive to their needs. I'm more in tune with what's going on in our relationships, in our home. I'm more present, and I've got a purpose again in my life. And a lot of this is about restoring purpose and identity. You said before that the hardest things we go through can give us the drive and the purpose for what we do today. Paul, you're a perfect example, going through that loss of trauma, where you've picked up that grief and turned it into something incredibly positive, where you're now the face and the driving force behind APOD, which wasn't yours initially. And, it's that sort of thing. I'm wearing a T-shirt. It says Romans 8:28. Well, it says all things Romans, which is just a bit of a tagline to a verse, Romans 8:28. And it simply means, it says, God will use all things for good for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. And I see that as a promise. I think it doesn't matter how bad things get. It doesn't matter how horrible life has been. God can use those things for good. And we see that in people every day. And it's why we do what we do. And it's what we encourage in others, to find their strength through their pain, overcome that, find a new hope, a new purpose, and a new identity, and really pursue that.
Oh, that's pretty on point. Everything that you said, Andy. But it's also a bit of risk is involved in that.
Yeah.
Wanting to open that door and move through it. So, Paul, can you just share maybe some of the early warning signs that you think that someone that might be struggling with PTSD, and why early support and connection is important? What's your view on that?
Yeah, no, can give it a go. I think, so my experiences from the communities that we interact with, and then probably not from a PTSD, but more from a grief and loss perspective, where there's some similarities in terms of disconnection and isolation and those sorts of things, which I think do cross in the two sort of areas. But I think some of the indicators that we see is the detachment, so that social isolation, people sort of disconnecting from both friends and families that are around them. Quite often it can be associated with almost shame. We're talking about a cohort of people who are well trained to deal with problems, and all of a sudden you've got a problem that you don't know how to deal with. That it's like the computer breaks. It's like, that's not normal. I don't know how to deal with this issue. And so there's almost a shame of not being able to talk to even say parents, because it's like, well, how do I admit this? How do I say that this has gotten so bad that I don't know what to do? So I think isolation is one of the key ones. Yes, I think a link to either drugs, alcohol, gambling, any of those sort of outlets that can happen. It's just I don't have the clinical explanation for the why, but it's the very much it links to in most instances. You're on mute, sorry, Lydia.
It's like coping strategies.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that's it. So yeah, I think it's those. Isolation is one of the real key ones that we see, and I think I quite often look to it in terms of when you go into a room, full of the defence and veteran community, it's almost looking for someone who isn't connecting. And quite often, I find I sort of saddle up to that person and just have a, hey, how you doing? How's your week been? But almost push the conversation sometimes to overshare yourself and say, I've had a crap day. How about you? Because there's almost this expectation that, we all say fine. How you doing today? Yeah, fine. Good day? Yeah, good. Well, that's superficial. It's not real. And, probably over half the time what we actually want to say is a bit of a rubbish day. This happened and it was hard, or this happened and it was hard. So for me, the signs are isolation, those coping mechanisms that we see, and I do find shame, and maybe I don't know if shame is the right word, but that it's almost the feeling so introverted, looking introspective, because you don't know what to say and who to say it to. So that then leads to that isolation being driven even harder.
It's interesting you brought up a number of really important topics there, Paul. Like these are what you're talking about are the root causes of people's trauma. It's things like unforgiveness of self and others. It's things like unprocessed guilt, shame, and regret.
Yeah.
It's things like poorly processed grief. Grief is a really beautiful human emotion. It's difficult. It's intense, but there's a process to it, and there's a purpose for it. But often people just remove the thought and try to push through life without sort of allowing themselves to grieve. That isolation piece is something we see every day in the veteran community. It's very counterintuitive when you feel like crap, excuse the language, to keep putting yourself out there in community, but this is the truth. And for anyone out there that's doing that, because I know a lot of people do it, a lot of people isolate because it feels like the right thing to do. It is not. Spending time on the couch by yourself is not the solution. You are created to be in community, in tribe. You have a tribe. That's why programs like ours are so impactful and so effective. It's not because there's these amazing teachers or this amazing content. We're doing it together with a community of people that understand us, right? It's a lot easier to walk into a room and not have to explain your entire backstory to someone in a clinical coat to try and find help, where you can walk into a room with people, maybe it's not the same trauma, maybe it's not the same story, but they've come from a similar or same service background that they just get it. They get who you are. And so that's your tribe. If that's your tribe and that's your community, you've just got to push through that desire to stay isolated and stay alone, because there's nothing positive happens from that place. Healing doesn't occur in isolation. Healing occurs in community.
Yeah.
Well, we also know, amongst a lot of families that I speak to, that there is a lot of breakdown in relationships because they don't know how to manage their spouse that's not doing too well, and I suppose that's kind of why Resolute Ready exists. Through my lived experience, I just didn't know where to go to find the help, and and I think it's really could perhaps if we could just talk about perhaps any advice that you could give your wife 10 years ago now, Andy,
Yeah.
and Paul, I'm sure with your experience and also the families that you meet, I'm sure you hear a lot of spouses talking about perhaps some of their challenges, or maybe some really great stories that have come out of just having the strength and the hope to move forward and not give up.
Yeah, I can definitely talk to that. For me, it was funny, this idea of PTSD, I saw as a personal weakness, right? I didn't have much understanding of it, probably like a lot of people in society, until I started going through some of those issues myself. So seeing it as a weakness, I refused to talk to anyone about it, try to bury it, try to ignore it. Those things didn't really work. Like people addressed before, I turned to go-to painkillers to try and mask the symptoms, drugs and alcohol, avoidance, withdrawal, emotional withdrawal. It really nearly destroyed my family. Breakthrough didn't actually happen until I had an honest conversation with my wife. And it's funny how we sort of play things over in our heads, oh, what's that person going to say when I actually reveal how I'm feeling? And I revealed something quite difficult to her in that conversation. It was one of the hardest conversations we ever had. I actually told her I was considering ending my life. And in my head, I'd played out the scenario and expected a response that was so very different to what I got. What I got was love, compassion, support. She was very hurt, and it was a very difficult time, but I realized I wasn't alone. And just that realization that I wasn't alone was enough for me to fight on for another day, another week, another month, and that turned into years. But it was just finding the strength to have that initial conversation. After I did that, I started it kind of took the power out of it. It took the fear out of it, this whole I think I've built it up inside my own head so much that if I spoke it out loud, it'd kind of make it more real. Well, it was already real. It was already impacting every aspect of my life. But now I was not fighting alone. Then I started just sharing more openly and honestly. And I think the advice that I would give people is just share what's going on. Um, the old "how's it going, mate?" Yeah, no, I'm all right. Well, if you're not, then tell someone. Like, it's okay not to be okay. It's really not okay to not be okay and not tell anyone, because that doesn't work. That doesn't work out well for you. It doesn't work out well for anyone else. So my encouragement would be just find that strength to talk to someone, start the conversation, and start finding help.
And Paul, what experience have you had with your thousands of families that you you deal with daily?
Yeah, I think a common conversation that we sort of end up is in the spouse and the family space is, the word I like is the cumulative load. You've got a partner at home, taking on more and more, whether it's managing just the house and appointments and kids and finances and work, and then partner who might be deploying and then home and then deploying again. There's a lot sort of constantly going on. Um, and then they might be protecting or shielding family from stuff that's going on in a relationship because they sort of have a sense that something's happening, but they don't know. They don't have a label or what to call it or how to ask the question, because almost sometimes you've got two partners dancing around. What is this? Is this a personal issue in the relationship, or is it a personal issue that someone's going through because of the link to service and what they've experienced? The interesting thing we often have a conversation around with more partners and spouses is this sense that because they're the one who didn't serve, they're not the one who went through that original trauma or experience, and so they almost try to minimize it, and they think they've got to sort of put it down, because they don't know how to almost process that. And so it's this sort of notion that quite often I'll have a conversation. So look, it's not a competition. You can recognize what your other half's going through. You've got to find the right way to have the conversation and support, but also call out and pull them up. But you've also got to make sure you're looking after your own well-being, because if you're
Absolutely.
not okay, they're not going to be okay. So it's this almost mutual respect, and that's like in any relationship. But it's how do you make sure, quite often the spouse partner conversation, how do you make sure you're okay? You've got your social network, you've got your friends, you've got someone you can lean on, because then if you're in that position, you're in a stronger position to have that conversation at home. But it's how do you have that conversation? And yes, you are entitled to have that conversation. Just
Yeah.
because you didn't put on the uniform doesn't mean, oh, I can't say it.
Yeah, it's good.
They'll talk to open arms, they'll talk to someone else, but I can't say it. Well, no, yes, you can. And it's actually almost it's almost in the wedding contract. It's your duty to bring the topic up.
Yeah.
You want to be
Yeah.
okay as a couple.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is really important. I also speak to some women that actually, if you don't mind me bringing up, that experience domestic violence
Yeah,
in some marriages. So I think the message we're trying to say here is safety first always,
yeah,
no matter what. And self-care is extremely important. And if you're not aware how to get out of something that you're in, that's where it's really important to speak up and don't
yeah,
think that you've got to carry that weight. And definitely look after yourself, because if you don't look after you, what is it? You put the oxygen mask on yourself and then on your family. But I think also the impact on our children,
yeah,
when couples might be yelling and screaming in the household, and how that can impact our children. And children have what they call also PTSD secondary, going through with my lived experience and my experience with the education system, I realised that there was a lack of support or understanding around PTSD in schools. So I was extremely passionate about developing the digital education backpack for that simple reason, to inform and educate our teachers, our parents, and our grandparents that if you have got a child or a grandchild that is experiencing difficulty with transitioning, whether it's just the absence of a parent or finding it difficult to focus at school, to the impact of service trauma. I know children that were impacted by crowds, like at school, the bell, loud sounds. They carry a few symptoms into their school environment, and it impacts for friendships and relationships. Um, so I wonder if you could speak, because you're both parents, perhaps from a fatherly figure, how have you managed your children?
Yeah, I think that was a big fear of mine, sort of going through PTSD, and it took a number of years for me to really come to terms with what was going on, and that impacted the family massively. Like we spoke about before, PTSD doesn't happen in a vacuum. You can't live in a home with someone with PTSD and moral injury and not be impacted by it. We meet a lot of couples that are impacted just from living in an environment with someone suffering from significant mental health issues. That in circumstances that can morph into domestic and family violence. It can morph into emotional abuse. Uh, it can come out in all sorts of horrible ways. And then, you add the drug and alcohol impacts and things like that onto the family network. Compassion fatigue is a huge one we hear about from um, partners. And certainly my wife went through compassion fatigue. She's like, how long can I be the strong one? How long can I keep doing all the work that needs to happen to look after 4 kids on my own while you're checked out? And I worried about the impact that was going to have on my kids for a long time because I wasn't the best dad. I wasn't well, and it did impact them. What I've learned though is that relationships can be restored, no matter how bad things do get. That true healing can happen. Like I've got an incredible relationship with my children today, 4 of them, the 2 boys and 2 girls. And I'm so thankful for that relationship. There was a time where I didn't think I would have a relationship with them. My marriage is stronger today than it's ever been. I'm so thankful for my marriage. I've been married 25 years, and there was a
Oh,
few of those years that were I'm sure we'd like to forget, but overall, it's a success story. You can overcome this stuff. One of the saddest things that comes to mind, we used to hear partners say, "How do I leave my husband without him killing himself?" And that's a pretty like full-on question when you think about it, because the home environment or the marriage has got to a place where it's just so difficult. They just want to check out of it. But they realize if I do that, I'm probably the only thing that's holding this person together. That's a huge weight for someone to carry. Certainly, people shouldn't be carrying that alone. So, yeah, I mean, the impact on family is massive. It's one of the reasons we started this, one of the reasons we're so passionate about Resolute Ready and all the work that you're doing. Because, we hear stories about the mental health issues of veterans and first responders. You don't hear a lot of stories about the partners.
yeah, yeah,
We wrote a book called Resurrected, A Story of Hope, and it's about our journey through PTSD and the impact on the family. It was written from my perspective as a veteran, talked a bit about the military and my career, but it was also written from Zoe's perspective as the wife of a serving member and how that impacted her thought processes, her parenting, her her approach to life. And it's pretty raw, because these are the stories that we need to hear more of, so that people out there realize they're not alone. Other people are going through this and have gone through this and even overcome it. So there is hope for a better future. But I've got a real heart for families. I've got a massive heart for relationships. We even run a program that we started this year for couples, veteran and first responder couples, because I'm sick of relationship breakdowns and divorce. So we've got a bit of a heart to run some reconnection programs for couples, just to help them connect again and realize, hey, what is it that brought us together? What are the things that we love about one another? What are the things that we agree on, and what's worth fighting for? And sometimes just that realignment can really help people to stay on track and keep the kids going and keep everyone healthy.
Well, I think too, there's like, when it comes to understanding from a civilian's point of view, like you guys, you have a language all to yourselves. Like we've got to learn a new language. We don't, let's not kid here. Like all your acronyms and
Yeah, that's right.
I remember going, well, what did he just say? What does that mean? I'm a civvy. But Paul, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I think I've definitely learnt that there's no instruction manual for kids. Nobody's written one. They are all unique. They are all different. So I'm fortunate enough. I got remarried in end of September last year, and so we have a blended family with 5 kids, ranging from 10 to 21. It is a busy house, but there's no playbook. Every one of them is different, and it's kids who have been through parents being divorced. They're kids that have been through loss of a family member, and I don't know. Sometimes I sort of look at it and I go, how are they as resilient as they are? Like I don't feel as resilient as they are sometimes, and I think, how do they hold it all together? And then the same token, I look at it and go, I'm here because, in my case, my son, I think, he's one of the ones who pulled me through, what I went through. I'm like, oh, I'm here for him. I need to be a dad. I need to be a strong dad. I need to be an example of, how to step forward through, what at the time, feels like you're in a hole you can't get out of. And I think, your kids are one of those things that can pull you through and give you some strength and some hope. But I think the open conversations with kids, I think, is so critical. They are so perceptive, and I think any of us parents who think that they don't know what's going on, we're just stupid. They are very well wired, and they've got ears like satellite dishes. I can't hear through one wall, and they can somehow hear through 3 brick walls, and they know exactly what's going on. So I think, I look at it these days and go, my role is to help be the left and the right to guide, to help them have, the right morals and make the right decisions when, we as parents aren't around, because that's when it happens, is when we're not around, so that they're safe and they know who to call. But the world for kids is a jungle these days. And so I think it's like, as parents, you're holding this little precious thing that sort of never seems to grow up. And all you want to do is probably keep them safe, knowing full well that that's a little bit outside of your remit, because you can't do that. That's largely about how do you just work with them to make the right decisions on their own. But also, when they make the wrong decisions, know the phone call they need to make is to you with no judgment. It's like, it's as my son's, very much on that page. He's like, pick the phone, Dad, I stuffed up, I need help. You're there no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think, and kids probably, yes, coming back into the, PTSD and trauma. I think kids quite often cannot be seen, whilst families are going through the impacts of PTSD and trauma. It's sort of, kids are the ones that get shoved into the bedroom or shoved onto the device. And it's almost the needing to take a breath to get through life just being in turmoil. And maybe sometimes as parents, we just got to take a breath and go, yeah, that's okay, because I need to sort myself out and I need to come through it. But then when I'm in a position where I'm feeling okay and I'm feeling better, you got to sit down on the couch and have a conversation with them, and you've sort of got to, be as honest as you can for whatever age they're at and whatever level of maturity they're at to consume and have the conversation back. And like for me in our house, I'm super proud of every single one of them for the conversations we have around the dinner table. Sometimes the questions that come from the dinner table, I don't know where they come from, but they make all of us grow as a result of that.
I think that's such a healthy thing. The old dinner table. I grew up in a home where the family sat down and had dinner together.
Yeah.
And it is the free place to raise anything that's going on in your mind. We've done that in our family, and it's been amazing. Like, I love it. I really look forward to our family dinner time, and everyone knows it's dinner time. We're all sitting there together.
Yeah.
And the kids can share whatever's on their heart. Doesn't matter. There's no judgment. We're just going to talk through stuff. You might have a crazy idea. It might just be a really funny joke. But it's such a beautiful tradition. And I think it's been lost a lot in society. I see a lot of families that don't do that. Everything's so busy. And it's good to slow down, share a meal together.
Now, I think that's so important, just to have just one place where you can all kind of come together and share your day is just so important. But Paul, you say, they're all individuals, they have their own little mindsets and their own little personalities. And like adults, children process information differently and they learn differently. So you can have, with your 5 children, I'm sure you're already aware that they do have different ways of engaging with their learning. And just from a teacher's perspective, I remember one year I was given a year 2 class, and I wasn't primary trained, but they said, Lydia, we need you to step in because the teacher's not well. And I was told you're going to have a violent kid, a runaway, one that can't read and write, one's on the spectrum, and I went, give them all to me.
Yeah.
Just give them all to me. They were the best 6 months. And because basically you've got to meet kids where they're at, right? Know where their learning capability is and then build from where they're at. Don't start at 5 and give them and expect them to perform at 20 when they haven't, built on 6, 7, 8, if you know what I mean. It's just, sequential learning. But I think as parents, I mean, you guys should be so proud. But speaking about families, and I know we've sort of spoken quite a bit about PTSD and trauma, but I also would like to celebrate our serving families who transition well, who I think it's just really important just to reiterate that it's not all families come out of the ADF, with a mental injury. I like to say that if they do, it's just a workplace injury, that just needs healing, and you've just got to find the right form of recovery and source of healing for you. So once again, Resolute Ready, we've got the Resolute Ready virtual hub, where you can select the nation, the state, and the need, and it takes you to, at least it's a launching pad, it's a starting point. It doesn't mean you're going to stop there, but you might go to, PTSD Resurrected, do a reboot course, and then you might jump and go and have a chat with Paul, and then you might, contact Legacy Australia to get some more family support, or you might, if you're a partner of a veteran, you might call up on the Partner of Veterans Association. So I think the key point is that we're stronger together. I think that's why I've called the webinar. We're strong. We are stronger together, and I think have the courage to step out. But I've just noticed Phil made a comment. One point he said it's really good. It has been good having a wife that served, and when she sees me plummeting, 2 words points me in the right direction. In brackets, open arms, they worked for me. And then we're talking about children. And I think it was around, it's really important that they have to be seen and they have to be heard. And I've heard of children hiding under beds and in closets and a whole range of situations. But I think I just think it's really important that we continue to keep open communication. But Andy, you've got a course coming up. Did you want to mention something about the course coming to Adelaide? So all of you listening, come to Adelaide. Come and
Yeah,
see us.
really excited to get back to Adelaide. It's been a while since I've been in the City of Churches. We've got a course, there's a reboot course coming up on the 1st to the 3rd of September. It's going to be held at the Intercontinental Adelaide, which is at North Terrace, Adelaide. And it's free for veterans, first responders, partners. And we've got a couple of limited spots for the wider community as well, for anyone impacted by domestic and family violence or any other traumas looking for support. You can register at ptsdresurrected.org. You'll find a link to join. Just sign up. If you've got any questions about the course, what it entails, just call us or send us an email. But very briefly, it's 3 intensive days spent together in a really supportive environment with peers who understand what you're going through. We cover the root causes of trauma from a holistic perspective. So we look at the mind, the body, and the spirit. We address issues that we've spoken about tonight, like loss of purpose, loss of identity, guilt, shame, regret, unforgiveness of self and others. And we help people form practical plans to overcome their own difficulties and address some of those sticky areas in their life. Maybe identifying, hey, what are some of the behaviors that I'm doing that are really impacting me and my family in a negative way, and helping people take a bit of accountability for their own healing journey. And ultimately, that's what it's about. No one can do this stuff for you. You've got to be in it and look for the healing. So if you or someone you know is suffering, then come along. You'll love it. It'll be an incredibly, I often tell people it might be one of the hardest things you'll ever do, because it is a difficult course. It's not easy, but it's also one of the most rewarding for people. It really does help people address trauma in their own lives and in their own circumstances. So really looking forward to coming back to Adelaide. Jump on. We've got a number of spots still available. Get online and love to see you there.
I honestly, it's life-changing. That's all I can say. That's the 2 words. Now, Paul, explain to our listeners more about the services that come out of APOD. You're not just about discounts. You do a lot more than offering some really good deals to help our veteran families. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, no, I certainly can. I'll keep it brief. I suppose we're very much, we'd probably say around financial wellbeing is our broader lane. Yes, probably one of the core things we have is around the financial benefits. So just trying to help people either save some money at home on whatever that is, Woolies or Coles or fuel or electrical stuff. But then also, through my team's experience, understanding around, volunteering and employment is such an important part of purpose. So we do a lot of work working with organisations to find pathways either for employment roles or volunteering roles, because there's a mix of both depending on what people are looking for. That includes the focus on spouses and partners, and we've actually had a couple of kids who have found employment through offers we've had on the platform, which have been really good. And then we sort of have I suppose a bit of a wrapper where we run some programs out of our office which are more light touch and ad hoc. So for us it's around community. For us it's around connection. We're probably, I would like to say we're Switzerland. We're probably very different to everybody else. And so because of that, we have lots of connection with the community. because they might go to an ex-serving organisation like an RSL just for specific things, and then they go to a Bravery Trust or a Legacy, or there's all of these great organisations, but they're quite specific why people have to go to them. People come to us because it's everyday shopping, and they're on our app and on our products pretty much every day. So because of that, we end up in really meaningful conversations that I would say 8 out of 10 times we didn't expect to be in, that just happen naturally. So for us, it's around trying to help people not fall between the cracks, try to help join them up with services and support that's out there for them, just be a point of contact. But financial well-being is really our key. So, where it's about, saving money, helping get people on their feet, looking for that purpose, that's the space that we really play and are strong in.
Well, I think, we've got that common cause. We want our families to thrive,
Yeah.
on every level, across mental health, education, housing, whatever it is that you need. And so I feel the listeners at the moment, in particular, if you are a veteran, a serving member, a first responder, a public safety officer, if you're a family member, a spouse, a child, I want to thank you for your service, all of you, because I think once again we are stronger together. And Andy and Paul, thank you so much for giving up your time this evening to share what you actually are doing, and you're actually changing lives on the ground. And I'm hoping that the digital platform, Resolute Ready, the digital platform, just literally will direct the traffic to you. So if you're a quality service provider and you're thinking that you'd like to join the hub, there is an opportunity for you to do that. Just submit your service. We do our due diligence on our side. Resolute Ready is a registered Australian charity, and we just really look forward to expanding the reach, some exciting projects happening over the next 12 months. And if you'd like to be involved, or if you'd like to reach out to Andy, please contact him. He'd love to see you in Adelaide. And Paul, look up APOD, some wonderful resources here for you. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us. Jackie, she's in the background doing our audio and sound. Thank you from the bottom of our heart for joining us and doing this. And to all of you, have a lovely evening and lots of love to your families.
Thank you. Thanks, Lydia. Thanks, Jackie. Great to meet you, Paul, and look forward to seeing everyone down in Adelaide soon.
No, I look forward to it. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. It's been a really great conversation. And Lydia, thank you for pulling it together and bringing us all around the table.
You're welcome.